What's up everyone, John from ARTV. It is time for a review of the ninth studio album by the indie rock band Death Cab For Cutie, titled Thank You For Today. It's being released almost 20 years to the day of their debut album, Something About Airplanes. Crazy, I know that was intentional. 20 years of Death Cab For Cutie. That's a little bit hard for my mind to comprehend, but they've been one of the most important and beloved bands in indie, and for good reason. I know some people think that they're not their cup of tea or whatever, and they're too sad, they're too slow, they're too emo, whatever the case might be. I've always found them to be extremely good, and I've related to much of their music and always found them talented as musicians. Now, what's notable about this new release, Thank You For Today, is that it's their first without one of their longtime members and their former producer, guitarist, Walla. I was definitely nervous because Kintsugi, that came out in 2015, their last proper studio album, definitely had his presence on it, but I wasn't sure what to expect. Rich Costi produced both that last album and this new one. He's most notable for probably producing bands like Muse, Franz Ferdinand, and I like him as a producer, and I didn't think that was going to be the issue. But the problem here in my mind wasn't that Rich Costi was going to produce, it was the fact that they added 2 new members to Death Cab For Cutie, and it takes apparently 2 people to replace Walla, who did the work of 2 for many, many years. He produced every album except for Kintsugi and obviously Thank You For Today, so what do we have going into this new project? A warm smile definitely comes to mind when I think of how to describe Thank You For Today. The last record, Kintsugi, was definitely watching a man going through turmoil, heartbreak, as lead singer Ben Gibbard was talking about and grieving about his divorce from actress Zooey Deschanel. Now on this new album, I feel like Gibbard, now in his 40s, is taking a newfound reflection, and he's looking more so on the positive side of the spectrum. And while it doesn't always land, I'm honestly kinda liking this optimism. It's something that feels like a breath of fresh air, and I know some people were worried after they put out that Trump song back in 2016, shortly before the election, but rest assured that this album is pretty much politics-free. It's talking about Seattle, it's talking about different places, different spaces, different states of mind, and I think that this album kind of has a breezy appeal to it that many people are gonna like. The songwriting is once again strong from Gibbard. It's something that is a little bit more impersonal, but it's also introspective. In the past, we've definitely known attention to detail and describing specific events, places, and just feelings to be something that was right up Gibbard's alley. He was so good at describing and being so overly descriptive at times, but he always made sure that we got the full portrait. And this time around, I do feel like we get that on some of the songs, but in a less confrontational type way. He intentionally leaves out anything that could be directly connected to most things, and instead chooses to write about places and scenery, and I do kind of like that. Let me just say that I do feel like the first half of this record is stronger than the second. This album does feel a bit short. It is their shortest to date, but only by about 20 seconds. They've had another album right around 39 minutes, and this one is just under that mark. That doesn't really have anything to do with how I feel about it, but the second half definitely feels a little bit lacking, and some of the moments come across not so crystal clear, and I feel like the ideas were well-intentioned, but the way that they flesh them out isn't always the best. I'll start off by talking about the track 60s Punk, which is oddly the closing moment. I know it's weird to start off with that, but it's a track that I feel was written for a friend that he saw slipping, somebody who was famous at one point. And Ben Gibbard just accurately kind of describes how we capture this person that we idolize, and we maybe hang them on the wall, put them up in high regard, and then over time we realize that they're human and they make so many mistakes, and then they let us down. And this song just kind of explores that. I don't feel like it's the most memorable here, but I definitely admire the ambition. The other song that I just don't care for as much, but I still feel like it's kinda solid, I just don't know exactly where it's going, so it ends up feeling a bit mediocre, is You Moved Away. This song was written for a Seattle artist that Ben Gibbard really admired, and he moved back to his hometown of Chicago, and everyone was writing about it being a huge mistake, but this song doesn't really do anything for me. It has this looping drum rhythm that just feels very, very standard. The bass and the guitar feel sterile as well, and just the low-key presentation of Gibbard's voice here doesn't do it any favors. I was very conflicted on the lead single Gold Rush, which is a tribute to the gentrification of and the changing of Gibbard's hometown, Seattle. This is a song that definitely gains momentum in some ways, but also kinda keeps the same tempo and stays the same. It has a Yoko Ono sample, which I thought was kinda cool. It oddly fits in like a little bit of a jagged puzzle piece, but it still works. And this song over time does grow on you. I won't call it amazing, but it's still okay. Thank You For Today opens up on a spectacular, very Death Cab-esque track, I Dreamt We Spoke Again. The guitars here and the way that they flourish and the way that they actually shine once they truly pop up is incredible. What a beautiful, vivid moment that talks about a ghost that essentially appears and guides. And this is a running theme that we've heard in Death Cab's music before, but I have to say it feels very welcomed here. This is a bright track in some ways. It feels inspiring, lingering, but also questioning. Like we don't have all the answers, but maybe we don't need them all. A gorgeous tune overall. The song that really stole the show for me was Northern Lights. It's an unreal, ethereal moment that truly captures something. It's so gorgeous, so magnetic and hypnotizing that you can't take your ears off of it. The piano flourishes here are absolutely brilliant, and I love the way that the guitars, the bass, the drums, everything syncs up perfectly with obviously Gibbard, but also an unexpected guest that I did not know was going to be on this album, and that is Lauren Mayberry of CHVRCHES fame. She sounds absolutely awesome on this tune, and the way that she pairs up with Gibbard, it just feels so natural. That chorus is an earworm, and this is easily one of my favorite songs of the year. The sweetness of When We Drive is truly felt. This is a song that depicts someone that was a traveler, a companion with Gibbard, and it just seems like they're going around, going wherever they go, and being sporadic and also just taking in the drives together, taking in the time together, just smiling wherever they go. And knowing that this person isn't always going to be perfect, something that is kind of alluded to a few times here on this album, but this is the most on-the-nose reference. It seemingly says, I know that things aren't always going to be the best, and I can't expect the world from you, but as long as we are together, by each other's sides, having each other's backs, then we're going to be okay. There's other songs that definitely touch on these sentiments, and Near Far would be one of those, although I don't really feel like it does that much for me. The opening riff just feels really lifted from something else, but I can't put a finger on it, and also the track Your Hurricane, while I do like the sentiment behind it, it does feel like it had a good heart. It's something that I couldn't see myself coming back to a ton, because it doesn't have the allure and the appeal of so many songs that I have heard not only on this album, but in the band's back catalog. Overall, I definitely had my expectations lowered for this album, but it met those and even more. This is another very solid album from Death Cab For Cutie. I should not have doubted them, and even though they are without Walla, they are still doing good things. This definitely isn't their best album though. There are weak moments and patches and a few songs that don't work as well as others, but the album is definitely worth your time. I will leave a link to stream it down below. For me personally, I'm going to give this a very strong 3.5 out of 5. What do you guys think? Sound off in the comments section down below, and please leave a like on the video while you're here, subscribe to the channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon. My Patreon is the top link down below, or else the annotation in the corner if you'd like to consider donating on a monthly basis to help the videos keep coming on both of my channels. If you want to see my last Death Cab video, then tap right over here, or tap here for another recent alternative video. All of my socials are linked in the description, and I'll see you soon for more on ARTV.